continue now at the top of Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis in Meseches Moed Kattan. This is Moed Kattan Daf 24b. The Brisa continues. Abashol Omer Abashol says, Af Ish Echad Ushtei Noshim. We're talking here about a baby that dies under 30 days old. So Abashol is saying that that baby can be taken to the cemetery even with one man and two women. It's not a problem of yichud. We'll take a look at Tosas over here. Tosas says, Mefurish b'Meseches Kedushin, Afagav de'ein ish echad misyached im shtei noshim. Even though generally one man is not allowed to have yichud with two women, b'shas avelos detri deshari. The time of avelos, people are very busy with the avelos, so it's not really a problem anymore in terms of yichud. It's permitted. That's why one man can be with two women in this situation. And the Brisa now continues to go through the halachas of what is done with this baby that dies under 30 days old. Ve'ein omden olav b'shura. We don't stand in the row like we normally do. Rashi over here says, Ve'ein omden olav b'shura. Ein sarach lamod olav b'shura keshechozrin mi beis hakvaris. When we return from the cemetery over in lifnei ha'avel b'shura, usually they stand, they pass before the avel in a row. V'chol echad omer lo tisnachim. And everyone says to the avel tisnachim, you should be consoled, you should be comforted. That we do not do for a child that's under 30 days old. Ve'in omrim olav birchas avelim. Also, we don't say on this child the birchas avelim. That's the bracha that we say in the Rashi says that we say in the street, mentioned in Meseches Ksuvas. We don't say that for this baby. Ve'tanchumei avelim. And we also don't say the standard consolation that we give to mourners. Rashi over here says again birchas avelim bracha she'omer berachava kedomer b'Ksuvas. Birchas avelim is the bracha that's said in the street, like we say in Ksuvas. And tanchumei avelim kol shiva holchin lanachem obeveso. All 7 days people would go and give comfort in the house. That again we don't do that in this situation. Ben shloshim yotze bidluskama. Now the Brisa continues. Let's say the baby dies and is already 30 days old or more. So then he goes out bidluskama. Bidluskama is a box. It's not the typical aron, but it goes out in this diluskama. Rabbi Yehuda says lo diluskama hanitelus bechasef. We're not talking here about a box that's taken by one person, that's carried by one person on the shoulder. El hanitelus bagafayim. We're talking about one that is carried. Rashi over here says, "Bagafayim b'shnei b'nei adam derech kavod." It's carried by two people in their hands in a way of respect. That's how this baby is taken out. And in such a situation where it's 30 days old, v'omden ala b'shura, we do stand in the row, and v'omrim ala birchas avelim v'tanchumei avelim. We do say the birchas avelim. We do the tanchumei avelim. Ben Yud Beis Chodesh. Now let's say the child that died was already 12 months old. So then Yotze B'mita, then he's taken out in a bed. Rabbi Akiva says, Hu ben shana ve'evarav keben shtayim. It has to be that the baby is a year old, but it's evarim, it's limbs, he looks like a 2-year-old. Or Hu ben shtayim, or it has to be 2 years old, ve'evarav keben shana. Even if its limbs look like it's only 1 year old. In other words, the point is Rabbi Akiva says, it's not enough to be 1 year old to be taken out in a mita, in the conventional bed. It has to be at least in one aspect like a 2-year-old. Either the child looks like a 2-year-old, or the child actually is 2 years old. Then Yotze B'mita, then he's taken out in the bed. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar says, Hayotze B'mita, any baby that's taken out B'mita, Rabim Matzhiven Olav. So then the public, Rashi over here says, Matzhiven, Margishinu Mitzar, and then they have to feel, and they have to be in pain. Then they treat it like a typical situation of Avelos. However, Eino Yotze B'mita, if you have a child that's not taken out B'mita, so Ein Rabim Matzhiven Olav. Then such a situation, the Rabbim don't act in the typical public displays of Avelos over this child. And the Brisa continues, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Nikr l'Ravim, Ravim misaskim imo. If he's Nikr l'Ravim, meaning he was a child that's already been accustomed to going out of the house, people know this child, then the public have to deal with him in terms of taking care of the funeral. Eino Nikr l'Ravim, but if it's a child that's not recognized by the public, so Ein Ravim misaskim imo, so then the public, they don't have to participate in the normal fashion in the funeral. Umahin behesped, and then the Brisa continues, what is with eulogies in terms of how old does somebody have to be in order that there's a mitzvah for a eulogy? Rabbi Meir b'shem Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Rabbi Meir in the name of Rabbi Yishmael says, Aniyim b'nei sholosh. When you're talking about poor people, so even if the child is 3 years old, so you have to eulogize. Ashirim, but if it's wealthy people, b'nei chomesh, the child has to be 5 years old. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishmo, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, meaning in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, he says Aniyim b'nei chomesh, that for poor people it's 5 years old. Ashirim b'nei sheish, for wealthy people it is 6 years old. Uvnei zekeinim kivnei aniyim, and the children of elders, that's the same as the children of poor people. And Rashi over here explains, Aniyim b'nei shalosh, why is it that poor people, the child even younger, needs to be eulogized? Lefi sheha'ani mitzar al bonav yoser min ha'ashir, because a poor person has more pain over the loss of a child than a wealthy person. Lefi she'en lo simcha acheres, because he doesn't have any other simcha in his life, and therefore even at a younger age, you have this obligation of eulogizing. And similarly, that's what the Brisa was saying, that the children of elderly people also, there's more pain involved by the loss of the child, and therefore they're treated kivnei aniyim. And now the point of bringing this was because of the question of who we paskin like. Amar Rav Gidol bar Menashe, Amar Rav. Rav Gidol bar Menashe says in the name of Rav, Halacha Rabbi Yehuda, Sha'amar Mishum Rabbi Yishmael. The halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, who says in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, meaning the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Yishmael, that it's Aniyim b'nei Chomesh and Ashirim b'nei Sheish. And the idea over here was that on the previous Amar, Rav Gidol bar Menashe said in the name of Rav that the halacha was like someone in a particular case. And so the Gemara now has this version that he was actually going on this brisa, and Rav Gidol bar Menashe was saying in the name of Rav that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Yishmael in regards to this particular issue about Aniyim b'nei Chomesh. The Gemara continues, Darash Rabbanani bar Sasan apischa debei Nasiya. Rabbanani bar Sasan, he darshan at the entrance of the house of the Nasi, Yom Echad lefnei Atzeres, let's say somebody dies the day before Shavuos, Va'atzeres, so then you count Atzeres as well, Harei kan arbo aser, that's actually going to count as 14 days of the Shloshim, meaning that first day before Atzeres, as we said, the Shiva is cancelled, so it counts like 7 days. And then the Chiddush over here is that Shavuos itself, even though it's a one-day holiday, it counts as 7 days also. So that's a total of 14 days. You're already 14 days into the Shloshim. Shamar Rabbi Ami v'ikvid. When Rabbi Ami heard this, he became angry. Amar, he said, Atu didehi, is that really his own teaching? It's not. The Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia, it's actually the teaching of Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia. He should have quoted it in the name of Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia. And the Gemara continues similarly. Darash Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha Akila de Reish Galusa. Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha darshan that the pavilion of the Reish Galusa, the head of the exilarch, Yom Echad lefnei Atzeres v'Atzeres harei kan arbo aser. The same thing. If the person dies right before, one day before Shavuos, then you count Shavuos as well. You have a total of 14 days towards the Shloshim. Again, Shamar Rav Sheshes v'ikbit. Rav Sheshes heard this and he was angry. Amar, he said, Atu didehi, is this really his teaching? To Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia. It's actually the teaching of Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia, and the Gemara now brings this teaching. To Amar Rebbe Elazar Amar Rabbi Oshia, because Rebbe Elazar says in the name of Rabbi Oshia, Minayin la'atzeres sheyesh lo tashlumin kol shiva. How do we know that when it comes to Shavuos, you have tashlumin, you have 7 days to bring the karbanos of Shavuos, even if you didn't bring it on that first day? How do you know you have 7 days of tashlumin? Shenemar, like the pasuk says, b'chag hamatzos u'v'chag hashavuos. It compares chag hamatzos Pesach to chag hashavuos. Ma chag hamatzos yesh lo tashlumin kol shiva. Just like by chag hamatzos you have tashlumin, you can make up the carbon for 7 days. Av chag hashavuos yesh lo tashlumin kol shiva. So too when it comes to chag hashavuos, you have tashlumin kol shiva. And the idea is, once we know there's a concept of tashlumin kol shiva, so it's going to count as though it's 7 days towards the shloshim. And the Gemara continues, Adabre Rav Papa Rav Avia Saba. There's different explanations what Adabre means. One explanation could be that Rav Papa gave Rav Avia Saba permission to darshan the following. In the Mosef Rashi over here, you could see Adabre Hinhigo Mitayalimo B'Mavos Ha'ir. He brought him, he led him through the alleyways of the city. He led him through the city, and he darshaned as follows. V'Darash, he darshaned as follows. Yom Echad Lefnei Rosh Hashanah v'Rosh Hashanah. If the person dies the day before Rosh Hashanah, then you count Rosh Hashanah as well. Same idea as before. Harei kan arbo aser. That counts as 14 days towards the Shloshim. Amar Ravina says, Hilgach, therefore, Yom Echad Lefnei HaChag. Let's say someone dies one day before Sukkot, V'chag u'shmini shelo. Now you count Sukkot and you count Shmini Atzeres. Harei kan esrem v'echad yom. That's actually 21 days. Because what you have over here is it's considered 7 days because the Shiva is canceled. Then you have the 7 days of Sukkot, that's another 7 days. And then you have the Shmini Atzeres, that itself counts as 7 days. So that's 7 times 3. That's 21 days towards the Shloshim. And the Gemara continues, Ravina iklal Surah de Pras. Ravina went to Surah, which was on the Euphrates River. Amar le Rav Chaviva mi Surah de Pras le Ravina. And Rav Chaviva, from Surah de Pras, he said to Ravina the following, Amar Mar, did the master really say, Yom Echad lefnei Rosh Hashanah v'Rosh Hashanah, that if the person dies one day before Rosh Hashanah, and also you count Rosh Hashanah as well, Harei kan arbo aser, that it counts as 14 days? So Amar le, so he said back to him, Ano mistabra Rabbi Gamliel hu da'amino. All I said was that it's logical to say, like Rabbi Gamliel's opinion in the Mishnah, it's unclear exactly what it means over here when he says that it's logical to say that the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel. But the simple explanation is that he was just saying the halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, that Rosh Hashanah is considered like a regel, but there's nothing else that I said in that regard. I never said that Rosh Hashanah counts as 14 days. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Ein korin v'lo cholzin ve'ein mavrin ela krov of shalmes. The only people who do kriya, the only people who uncover their shoulder, and the only people who are provided a meal after the burial are the relatives of the person who is deceased. Ve'ein mavrin ela al mita zakufin. Also, when you provide the meal for the ovel, so those who are providing the meal, they have to sit on an upright bed. They don't overturn their bed. It's only the ovel who overturns the bed. We'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Chaf Hey Amud Aleph.